Father, do you want to talk about being arrested, or do you want to talk about street evangelism? How do you want to go after this?
I'm pretty prepared for both, so you pick, Dr. Marshall.
Let's talk about being arrested. You've been arrested twice in pro-life. Explain how that goes down, and then maybe I know in one of those contexts you were able to share the gospel with one of the police officers, the guards.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm with a group called Red Rose Rescue, and at first I thought the arrest thing was kind of a publicity stunt, and I was up for it, maybe out of pride. But the more I looked at it and the more I talked to the people in Red Rose Rescue, the more I realized we really are entering in to do peaceful sidewalk counseling into an abortion center, to hand out roses and talk to couples who are about to kill their preborn children, to convince them and them alone at that moment not to hurt their children. It's not a publicity stunt. Now, granted, we realize we might be arrested as the clinic workers ask us to leave there, and we gently say we cannot leave until every woman and every child is safe. And in doing this, we hand out roses, and then they usually call the police. And even though our goal is to peacefully empty the place through our prayers and our admonitions, that usually doesn't happen, and then we get arrested, and then that makes the news. But essentially, even the arrest is seen as a mystical offering of suffering where, there's going to be steel on these babies' bodies as literally their limbs are ripped up by steel. And it's a tiny offering, but, when the handcuffs broke my skin and was bleeding, it's a very, very small offering compared to that. But it is metal on my hands to offer up in union with Christ for these babies who will face a much worse fate that day. And so the cops usually show up, full code 3, lights, sirens. The last one I was arrested, I think they must have reported us as terrorists because we looked at the video later, they had 10, 15, they must have had, I can't remember, many, many SUVs come racing in, and they body slammed my friend of Franciscan to the ground. And a big Egyptian Muslim guy stared in my face, and he goes, "Will you comply? Will you comply?" And I was pretty nervous, but I stayed calm. I said, "I will not resist, but I cannot leave until the babies are safe." And so he threw me on the ground and handcuffed me. And, these guys were high energy because, again, I think it had been reported we were terrorists. Well, he booked me there in New Jersey a
Well,
little
real
bit.
quick, I mean, they came up and you guys are wearing like habits and cassocks, right?
Yeah, well, Father Fidelis was kind of incognito. It's harder
Okay.
for him to unzip, to have the habit showing that I kind of have now. But back then, as a diocesan priest, it was easy for me to pop the Roman collar in at the last minute after doing that. But we have to go incognito
Got it.
because if we go in the clerics, people will know we don't belong in there, so to speak, belong in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when they booked us in the Jersey jail there, it was actually the big Muslim guy who had to do all my paperwork. And I think they were surprised we called him officer. We were very respectful to them. And there must have just been a lot of grace flowing in that whole police station because one of the Italian officers started telling me about his history of Catholicism, and I was able to encourage him which sacraments to return to. The Muslim was really amazing because he said, "Look, I don't disagree with what you did. I'm not against what you do, but I also have to support what Planned Parenthood did as far as the law." I said, "No, you don't. They're killing children and we're trying to stop it." And he just hung his head in shame when I said that.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he realized I was respectful, but I had boundaries that he wasn't going to really penetrate. And then he started opening up to me about his own life. He was dating a Spanish girl who was waiting for an annulment. And, so he said, he was talking about that, and I thought, well, this would be a good chance to see if he has any good sense of humor about this, because we've been talking about an hour, and I go, "How do you think she's going to feel when you tell her that you arrested 2 priests today?" And he hung his head again and goes, "Not very good," and we both had a good laugh. And so
Good
then we
one.
were
It's a good
able,
one.
yeah, and he ran a call actually on an unborn baby his first week as a cop in Newark. Now our arrest wasn't in Newark, but he ran a really horrible call that I won't say on this because all your listeners would just turn your show off. It was unbelievable. But he ran a call on an unborn baby in Newark, and it haunted him to that day. And so he opened up to me about what he had seen and why he understands what we were doing. Well, that led into an opportunity for me to talk about Mary in the Quran, how she's ever sinless, and then talk about Jesus as the Savior of the world. And he was really open to everything that we were saying. As I said, the other cops, some of these ex-Catholics or current Catholics, were really interested then in the Catholic faith because of this. And by the time we left, they were all smiling and shaking our hands, and we must have been their favorite criminals they've ever arrested. But it was because we were respectful, quiet, and really respected who cops are, what they stand for. We were able to share the gospel of life, why abortion is wrong, and also why Jesus is the only savior of the world.